University of Glasgow. Those of you who haven't been to Glasgow, Scotland, it always looks like that, the rivers of rain. Full blue skies, it's gorgeous. So I've got 7 minutes or less to just talk a little bit about our experiences with our institutional repository, the use of the word repository, trying to add value to it, and challenging times with services like Mendeley and ResearchGate. So yes, like the first 2 speakers as well, although I just Googled it. So I went to a repository, a place, a sphere, a receptacle. I have to say, we don't use the word repository at Glasgow when we go out and talk to our academic colleagues. I find the word unhelpful, I find it a barrier. And I think the other thing that I find about the word repository is it's missing another word. And the other word it's missing is service. Okay, so actually we don't have just a repository, we have a repository service. And at the University of Glasgow, we branded that as Enlighten, so that's the name that we use when we go out and we talk to our academic colleagues. We try not to use the R word. And really the service, so it's a heady mix of, we have the tin, but we also have the staff and the people and the support. And I think one of the things that really has struck us is how important it is to make that investment in your repository, not just in the tin and firing up the software, but the advocacy, the ongoing, the engagement, the working with faculty, and actually ensuring that you have a service. And beyond that, we saw 3 other sort of elements, and these are multiplied because they are the people, the staff that you work with supporting the repository, there's the faculty, for whom you want the repository to be a valuable or critical piece of the process. There's the actual processes themselves. How can we make it as easy as possible for them to give us their full text in order for us to fill our repository so that they don't languish somewhat unfulfilled? And what policies, local policies do we need in the UK? We've seen a lot of change with funders, with a lot of the government as well, sort of acknowledging much more about open access, and increasingly, I think we're going to see repositories much more at the heart of all of that. And I think we're starting to see some traction on that now. But our repository is juggling lots of different agendas. We're doing assessment now, we're doing open access, we're doing, we feed into key performance indicators. The repository is being asked to do a lot more. Are we being spread too thin? We are not a CRIS, we don't have a CRIS at the University of Glasgow, but the repository is increasingly doing more and more of these things. However, yeah, we are sort of missing. We have 70,000 records, only 10%, when I look up at the life cycle at the moment of our repository is full text. However, I went back and looked at the last 6 months, and it's nearly 20%, and that's because of a lot of the external drivers, the sea change that we're starting to see. I think that's really encouraging, and I think repositories have the opportunity to be that overnight. It's like the jogging actor. There'll be an overnight success. You can't see the 10 years of work that we actually did to get to that big part, but nonetheless, they're there. Celebrate your achievements with your academics. Champagne is always good. This is our colleague who was the 1 million to download from the repository recently. And this grant is also, I haven't seen this film, this grant was an opportunity to actually take a step back and have a look at our repository. To ask yourself, well, who's the fairest repository of them all? So this is our repository. As you can see, it's a standard repository. It runs using ePrints, and it's got a search option. It's got a browse view. Oh, you can't see anything. That's because it's invisible. That's not really the way in which many of our colleagues access it. That homepage, nobody ever comes to our homepage. They're coming from Google. They're coming from various other services. So this is Enlighten, and taking a step back. This is it, much more integrated and embedded, so it's plugged into all of these various different services. In many ways, this is how our academic colleagues see them. So they have their publications, and we push those out into their various different pages. We try to give them some ownership of that, so they've got some choices to make some selections. The single biggest thing which we asked for when we pushed the data, we pushed publications out from the repository to their staff pages, was I don't want necessarily all of my papers, I want to be able to select. So our ePrint service gives us an opportunity to allow them to just pick the 5 or 6 from the 300 which you may have to have published. So this is the random cute cat photo, just still new for the but actually it's also meant to remind you that it would be a catastrophe if we didn't fulfill the potential of our repositories. However, from cute to scary, you know, do you have a zombie repository? You set it up and it's just shuffling along. You're not making it, you don't have the investment, you don't have the development. You know, like loads of things I want to develop from this repository. You know, our thesis service, it looks a lot like, you know, it just came out of the box from ePrints. We need to make sure that we have the technical development and the time to do that. You know, to make it slightly richer, to build in things like alt metrics and local value added material. But a sea change is coming. You know, a sea change, particularly in the UK with these external drivers. You know, people are now wanting to talk much more to us about repositories. The Higher Education Funding Council explicitly talks about open access and repositories as we move towards our next national assessment exercise, which will be in 2016. The good old trope with apologies to Shoeless Joe Jackson. Yeah, not so much. Even if you fill it, sometimes they will come. But other services, we look at Mendeley and ResearchGate, the amount of traction that they've got has been fantastic. Looking at ResearchGate, one of the things talking to our academic colleagues, it's much more about the sharing and the collaboration. And they like the ego emails that you get from services like this, which say, yeah, your paper's been downloaded and cited, and X, Y, Z. We need to look at ways in which we can reach out and we can build that into our repositories as well. So I think really what we need to do is we need to try and have fewer hoops for our colleagues or our academics to jump through. We need to provide more value to them. And you know, we're already starting to see that, where we can provide them in a sort of holistic sense with a repository service. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, was that really random, or is that your cat?
That is my cat.
Okay, that's not
It was random where it's positioned in the slides, but that is our cat.
Well, that makes sense, yeah.
Have you successfully woven up a zombie repository from the dead? And what's the best way to get started?
I'm quite sure on that. I have a little mistake repository that speaks language and content to move out of it. But I was thinking there about it's more about, I think, sort of almost lack of attention and investment. It's not enough to just that. I know I'm preaching to the converted. You know that. I think just making that investment to just continue to evolve so that it doesn't go, yeah, we set it up. But you know, just do that.
Hello, you mentioned the ResearchGate and Mendeley. That the scientists or researchers, do they actually know that when they are curating content or they are uploading content that actually was aggregated from the repositories to ResearchGate, for example, they are actually logging in their content or their curated content? And do you think that you must make that more visible?
I think in some cases they do. I think one of the interesting things about so I've signed up for ResearchGate recently, it's really interesting to see. I think the thing about those services is they have that sort of intra-institutional nature, so clearly a lot of development sort of built in. I like Mendeley's statement that they thought that we wanted to make using Mendeley as easy as sunshine and kittens. Which is great, but again, so I suspect sometimes they do or not. There is some statements on Mendeley about making your material available. It's certainly much shorter text that we make available in our repository.
So, William, it's difficult to ask questions that you've channeled the zeitgeist so well. It's like, thank you for that fresh reminder. So let me channel you from the future. At OR 2019, what would you rant about what we're doing today that was pretty stupid?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, so by 2019, we'll all have full repositories. No, but we will have, I think, by 2019, I'd like to address some of the earlier rants, because I think I didn't talk at all about preservation and various other things, and that's a sort of a layer and a service that I think we do need to turn our attention to, and I think sort of harking back to Cliff Wace's Article 1 on institutional repositories, that stewardship. And I think at the moment we're spending a lot of time, certainly at Glasgow, trying to capture that material, but I think we do need to then look at that curatorial element of that preservation element. So I suspect, hopefully I won't be back in that case. We still haven't done that, but it would be, I think from the if you build it process, I think we're just trying to realistically capture as much of that